Hello, how is everyone doing? This is Sheree, your host on the Speak Life podcast. I hope everyone is doing well. I know that some states have opened up. I must caution you to be careful. Even though they're open, it does not mean that this virus has decided to pack up and leave yet. So just be aware of that. Anyway, that's a side note. I'm super excited today because last week on Mother's Day, we had our launch for our book, Mothers Speak. Christian Women Share Their Wisdom for Spiritual and Natural Success. And I want to share with you what our format's going to look like for the next few weeks. We have 8 co-authors besides myself on, and we will be sharing about the process of doing an anthology. Now, what an anthology is a group of people who collaborate and write a book together, sharing their stories. So, and that's what we all do as mothers. We share our stories. I talk about one thing, another mother talks about another thing, and we talk about raising children, raising daughters particularly, but also raising children, in today's society, and the things that were done to raise successful children. Now, not perfect children, but successful children once they get out of our home. And, we emphasize that, communication is very important with your children, as well as boundaries and discipline, and, allow them to make their own mistakes and own their own mistakes. The authors are Apostle Joyce Stevens, Pastor Irene Cheney, Pastor Chantel West, Minister Thesha Rogers, Minister Chandra Bailey, Thea Robinson, and Alice Horton Mays. So together, these women collectively and Deborah Johnson, I'm sorry, I forgot about Deborah Johnson. We share collectively just tips about raising children and how it's not easy, but, you have to create an environment for them that they can grow up in. You can't be their friend. You would like to be, but you can't be their friend. And you have to do what you need to do in order to get them to the next level of their life. This is really important in today's society. Children are very important. They're very impressionable. There's so many different things going on. We had a conversation today that was very interesting. Like, we wonder if things will change, because now that the children had to stay inside, had to stay inside the house, will they want to go out more? Will they want to be more outdoors now? Because now previously, remember, a lot of kids choose not to go out, and they stay inside and they're on the computer and watching TV, and they're not going out. So will things change? That's a very interesting observation. So we talked about that. So let's keep an eye on that. But this book was birthed out of my relationship with my own daughter, who is now deceased and passed away at the age of 18 and a half. And I just felt that, the lessons that I learned in terms of relationship and obedience to God were important to share with people and to tell my story. So in this book, I tell my story about my relationship with my daughter and her transition, and it's just a real cleansing experience for me. Other mothers share their experience preparing their children for college and just preparing their kids for life in general. It's some pretty good stuff. And I'm not just saying that because I am the author who had the idea and who did the collaboration. It's not about money for me. It's about just putting the word out to the people and, just having people just read it. I have several people who read it and they were like, really, one person was in tears about it. She said it was very emotional for her to read it, but it was very good and it would be very helpful. So we just want, if you're interested in purchasing the book, you can go to Amazon.com, put in Minister Sheree Casey, and you will pull up the book and you can purchase it. The book is $15. And there will be an ebook coming out in the next couple of weeks. And there'll be a special offer for that. So if you want to wait for that, you're more than welcome. I know a lot of people are doing ebooks right now. We are offering up a Q&A. So after the broadcast, after you hear the broadcast, we'll give you an email where you can send questions to each author that you would like to speak with. There'll be opportunities, once things slow down, we'll have plenty of opportunities for you to come and wait for us to come out and, speak in the community for your organization, if that's what you'd like us to do. We have a lot of things, planned, especially for, new authors and a lot of stuff going on. So stay tuned, and I hope that you would purchase the book or at least get the word out. If you know some mothers and daughters that are having some conflicts right now, purchase the book for them. Give them a gift, along with encouraging them to get help for their relationship. I just feel it's so important for mothers and daughters, for fathers and sons as well, mothers and daughters to have a good relationship, because when children are raised in a not so good relationship, they tend to walk away and leave, and sometimes they carry the same behaviors that they learn from their parents, and although they try not to, they end up doing that. And we want to have children grow up in healthy, happy environments. We don't want them to grow up in abusive, negative settings. So we want to create and foster that environment. And once again, I must emphasize that nothing and no one is perfect. So we just want to put out there that we are just offering tips. There are, some things that people go through. Some people go through more than others in this life. There are a lot of things that people go through, but they're hesitant to tell their stories to their children. They're hesitant to tell them, well, there was that time before you were born that we couldn't even afford to eat. No one shares those stories with their children. And I think it's important to be transparent as you can with your children. Now, I'm not saying that You should tell all your problems and deep-seated secrets to your children because they're not mature enough to handle that. And I don't like, having worked with children for over 40 years, I would hate to see people do things like that. Put their burden on their children. So let's be mindful of that. But we do need to share with them our experiences. If we struggled in school, well, yeah, I struggled with that subject too. Or, if you were, not such a good kid, I have to tell my kids all the time. My mother has this story, about how I just loved to lie when I was a kid. And, my kids, I'm not going to go into it. My son will laugh if he's listening to this, but there's a story about how I brought home a puppy, and I said he followed me home, and that I'm not going to tell the whole story, but it wasn't true. So, but all my kids know about it. My grandchildren probably know about it too. My son will tease me about it. So, just things like that you have to, remember that you were a kid too. Even when we discipline our kids, we have to remember, wait a minute, before we become too harsh and do something that we'll regret. We have to remember, discipline is very important, but at the same time, understanding what they did was wrong, to me, is more important than any discipline that you could ever give them. If they did something wrong in school, if they went and they fought in school and they're not supposed to be fighting, or if they, took something that didn't belong to them, I think sitting down with them, explaining to them that, hey, you don't steal. Stealing is wrong. Or, you don't fight nobody, And, now if the behavior continues, that's one thing. But, let them know, hey, I did this when I was a kid. It wasn't good. And it's still not good today. So, a lot of things we got to look at. We got to look at our past discipline. How we were treated. Some people, it was good enough for my mama to beat me, so it's good enough for me to beat my child. In some cases, I don't advocate beating a child to death. I don't advocate that at all. But they should have some form of discipline, but it shouldn't go beyond a certain scope. It shouldn't go beyond a certain scope. It should be, I believe that some kids need a little more effort than others, and may try you a little more. But in the end, as long as you stay consistent and emphasize the consequences, then your child should be okay. Now sometimes, and once you lose control of a teenager, it's hard to reel that back in. So you really should start from the time they're a child, listening to them. From the time they're a little child, listening, paying close attention. In my field right now, I have to get information from the parents on, early childhood things. And, I asked the question in the evaluation, what was that child like as a child, and I list behaviors, and the mother said I could pinpoint the age when their behaviors started to change. So when you look at that, when you can pinpoint, instead of somebody saying, I don't know, it just happened. No, it didn't just happen, okay? This child was changing before your eyes, and you just did not see it. So pay close attention to your children. If you have small ones, pay attention to them now. Look at those behaviors in them that later on, if you don't get under control now, they're going to